Hey everyone, SunTide here, and I am back to talk about Qurious Crafting in Tile Update 3 and all of the cool probability and builds and map stuff that we see in that. Hope you all are doing well, and if you saw my Tile Update 2 video for Qurious Crafting, you might have noticed that I said that I don't expect the crafting mechanics, the Qurio Crafting mechanics to change very much in the new Tile Update. I was very wrong. Basically, if you don't know by now, they added new types of Qurious Crafting in the new Tile Update. There is the old standard augmentation type, but they also added what they call the stability augment type, which apparently increases your defense, and the skills plus augment type, which apparently gives you superior skills. The question we want to answer in this video is, what do these three augment types actually do? What are the real differences? And which is the best to use when we're Qurio Crafting? And also, what are the real probabilities? What do they actually do for the gear that you want? So yeah, we're going to answer all of those questions in time. Before we get too far, a quick refresher if you don't understand how Qurio Crafting works in the old case. Basically, each armor has what we call an augment pool, which is linked to the rarity, like the actual rarity of the armor in-game. Augment pool decides the effects and chances of getting some trait whenever it rolls some effect from augment, so things like adding or losing defense, adding slots, or adding or losing skills. And the pool also affects what we call the augment budget, which is basically how good and how many augments you get when you do craft. Basically, each augment either adds or removes points from that budget, and if you run out of points, if you get too many effects at once, or if you roll too many times, the sequence ends and the game gives you your gear. So that's how it normally works. We'll get to the difference between each one, but very quickly, in Tile Update 3, they added some new really powerful skills that are accessible from Qurious Crafting. Specifically, Bloodlust and Build-Up Boost. These two skills are amazing. Bloodlust gives you a bunch of affinity. It's really good if your weapon can't hit high affinity without it. So things like the lance really appreciate it. And Build-Up Boost is good for any weapon that uses poison. So any weapon. These skills can't be obtained via decorations. Before we had to use specific gear. So things like the Arc or Storage gear for Bloodlust, or the Risen Mizuha gear for Build-Up Boost. Neither of those gears were actually really good outside of those unique skills they get. Now the fact that we can actually get those skills through other methods means that those armor pieces aren't very good, and we can use better armor pieces to get those skills. Each of these skills are so strong that they're worth like multiple points of other skills. And it's also at the sort of border where it's quite easy to get for low rarity gear, but quite hard to get for high rarity gear. So it does sort of change what gear we use in the long run. But yeah, okay, so what are the three types of augmentation and what's the difference? So basically, they change for the most part what happens at the start of the crafting mechanics. So the data miner who figured all this stuff out, the Tilnor, made a quick flowchart, which you can see on screen right now. It's a bit complicated, but basically, so normally what happens is if you do the standard augmentation, before it rolls everything randomly, the game will try and give you some very specific augments. For standard augmentation, first it'll try and give you a defense augment, and then it will try and give you a skill augment. Now, I want to emphasize the use of the word try here. So the defense one will usually, I think, always give you or make you lose some defense. The thing is that when it tries to give you a skill augment, there's a chance that the price, the skill point, the point cost of on the budget of the skill augment is going to be higher than the budget you get, so the skill won't actually stick. Now, practically, what this means is that there's a chance that if you want really strong skills with a lot of points, you just cannot get it on this first roll. So it ends up becoming really hard to get high power skills on high rarity gear. This is sort of the reason, because it forces you to try and roll a skill augment early on. So if you get something that is not the skill you want, you are just out of luck. You aren't going to get the skill you want ever in the subsequent rolls. Everything depends. You need multiple things to go right to get a high quality skill on a high rarity gear with standard augmentation. Now, how do the skills ones work? So this one is very similar to the standard one. Basically what happens is that instead of giving you a random defense augment and then a random skill augment, what happens is it will first make you remove a skill. It'll make you lose a skill. And this is really good because when you lose a skill, you get a lot of points that you can use to get new skills. It'll also make you lose some resistance, which is not great. Also, it doesn't give you any points, so you just lose some resistance. However, because we lose a skill, we have an expanded budget to get any other skill the game chooses. Whatever the game chooses to give you, you will get. Because of that, when you use this skills plus augment, you can get, for example, build up boost on the first try on any gear you want. You will lose a skill point, and there's a chance that it will roll you build up boost. If you do the normal standard augmentation and you have a high quality gear, if you roll defense augment and then you roll a build up boost on some gear, there is a very high probability that you may roll build up boost and then you don't have enough points in your budget to actually get build up boost. So it just won't work. So for high rarity gear, getting high power skills plus is very, very good, but you do lose a skill, and that is bad. Stability, on the other hand, is actually the really weird one. Basically, the first roll will always give you defense. You will not lose defense. After that, it actually changes most of the mechanics. So usually, you would just roll random augments from defense changes, resistance changes, skills, or slots. Here, if you try and change, if the game rolls to change your skills, it will instead roll to give you defense. If it rolls to lose defense or elemental resistance, it will just try and roll to give you one of those things. Basically, the game will try and give you some defense. There's a chance you can still gain slots. It doesn't stop you from gaining slots, but it does stop you from gaining skills. So, in short, those are the three types. They mostly change the early stuff. So again, for standard, you will try and roll defense and try and roll a skill. For skills plus, you will lose a skill, then you will gain a skill, and you'll also lose some resistance. For stability, you will gain defense, and you will not lose defense at all during the process, and will not gain skills at all. With that in mind, we then can ask ourselves, okay, we know the rules, what are the real effects? What does it actually mean for the probabilities? So, as usual, I basically took this flowchart, coded it up properly in Python, and then I ran the simulations. I told the computer to, hey, let's do 1,000,000 Qurio crafts for each type of gear, for each Qurio crafting type, and see what we get, see what the chances of getting each thing we want. So let's go through it one by one. So, starting off with the normal type, I've gone through this before. Basically, as you can see, as we increase the pool and as we increase the skill value, things get harder and harder. So with a low pool item, you have a 1 in 73.6 chance to get a 3-point skill that you want, and a 1 in 25 chance of getting a 15-point skill that you want. Which are not too bad, either of them. However, if you go to, for example, a pool 6 gear, so things like the Risen Kushala or the Risen Teostra gear, you have a 1 in 80 chance of getting a low value skill, but a 1 in 1,500 chance of getting a high value skill, and this is unreasonable to aim for, I think. So yeah, your chances of just getting a build-up boost, for example, on high rarity gear, which is a 12-point skill, is going to be very, very low and not worth aiming for. On the other hand, getting things like slots are actually rather achievable. So you have a 1 in 159 chance of getting a 2-slot skill on a rarity 6 gear, which is not bad, and a 1 in 34 chance of getting it on a pool 1 gear. So practically, what this means is that slots are pretty good to aim for in general from the standard augmentation, and higher rarity gear does find it difficult to get stronger skills. My general recommendation is that if you have a very high pool item, so the Risen Elder Dragon gear, I wouldn't aim for more than a rarity than a skill with value 6 or a value 9 to get that 1 in 200 chance that I sort of want to aim for. If you want to get skills like Build Up Boost, the rank 12 skill, I wouldn't aim for it for anything worse than a pool 2 gear or a pool 3 gear. So I would try and get it on things like the Ingot gear or the Jaggy gear, but I wouldn't try and aim for it on, again, the Elder Dragon gear. But yeah, those are my general recommendations. Of course, you are free to do whatever you want. You now have the probabilities, you can make an educated decision. The stability one is actually really weird. So you cannot gain skills, but I did see someone on the internet mention once that it could be really good for obtaining slots. And that has a really interesting and complex answer. For low rarity gear, you actually do have a higher chance of getting slots, because you aren't going to try and get skills which will lose a lot of points. So to get +2 slots via normal augmentation, you have a 1 in 34 chance. To get it via stability, you have a 1 in 23 chance, which is about 50% higher. You also get more defense this way, which is also very nice. More defense on average. However, for the higher rarity gear, it's actually very hard or impossible to get high amounts of slots, because we cannot lose defense to gain points, we can't lose skills to gain points. Because of that, stability is only really good if you want more slots on low rarity gear. On high rarity gear, you cannot get many slots. So even if you aim for 1 slot on a rarity 6 gear, you have a 1 in 17 chance. On the normal crafting, on normal augmentation, you get a 1 in 12 chance. So yeah. Basically, stability is good to aim for if you want to get extra slots on low rarity armor. I wouldn't recommend trying to get slots on low rarity armor. I would usually recommend trying to get really strong skills, like Bloodlust or Build Up Boost. But yeah, so stability at least does have sort of a niche in this case, and also it's good if you just want defense. Now, the big one, Skills Plus. This one is super interesting. Because we lose the skill and we gain points from that, again, every skill that the game tries to give you will stick. This means that you actually get a roughly equal chance of getting every skill in the game for every piece of gear in the game. What I mean is that, for example, if you have a pool 1 gear and you try and get a rarity, and you try and get a 3-point skill, you have a 1 in 66 chance. You try and get a 15-point skill, you get a 1 in 111 chance. Not that big a difference. They're both still quite achievable. On the other hand, if you have a rarity 6 gear, you have a 1 in 65 chance of getting a 3-point skill and a 1 in 140 chance of getting a 15-point skill. They're all very achievable. The problem is that you lose a skill. And you could lose a very good skill depending on the armor piece you have. And, there's no point in losing Critical Eye just to gain attack boost, for example. Probably. This makes the overall chances much higher. So this made making this plot a bit weird, but basically what I did is I have a third column here. So on this first column we have the pool that the armor piece is in, and we have a number of skills. Basically, if we have 1, that means we have 1 skill and we will lose the 1 skill we want to lose. If we have 4 skills in this column, that means we have 4 skills and we want to lose a specific one of those 4 skills. Okay? Now, the chances of losing a skill we want and also then gaining a skill we want is very, very low. Well, low enough to aim for. So if we have a rarity 6 gear with 4 skills and we want to lose a specific one and gain another one, we have a 1 in 600 chance, which isn't very nice. If you have 2 skills and we want to lose one, specific one, and we want to gain a rarity 12 skill, the chances are 1 in 176, which isn't that bad. So yeah, basically this number of skills column tells you how many skills you have and your chances of losing one specific skill from it. This also changes some slightly weird different things. Basically, the game does not want to give you more than 5 skills total. This means that if you have 4 skills, you will only get 1 extra skill ever. You will never gain a second skill. You will never gain 2 extra skills if you have 4 skills when you start off. But yeah. So basically, the recommendation for this is if you don't care about most or any of the skills you have on the gear by default, or if the trade-off is good enough, which is true all the time. So for example, the trade-off to lose attack boost for build-up boost is very, very worth it. Build-up boost is much stronger than attack boost if you're using a poison weapon. So yeah, with that in mind, basically, more overall recommendations. Which pieces should you try and Qurio Craft, Qurio Augment if you try and optimize your gear practically? Basically, I decided to cut that into 3 categories, 3 types of gear you want to craft, and the type of crafting you want to use. Basically, the best thing we can have is good armor that also has a few good skills. That's pretty weird, but a key example of this is going to be the Onmyo Teko, which you can see on screen right now. So this gear is actually really good because it has 3 2 slots, and we love 2 slots. You can fit them basically any skill you want. It's pretty good. And also, none of those skills are that good. They're all nice, but they aren't like completely changing the way you play the game. Unless you're a sword and shield user. But basically, this means that this is a perfect candidate for skills plus augmentation. If you lose a point of stamina surge to gain a good skill, this is a really, really good piece of gear. Another example, slightly worse, is the Sinister Grudge Tacits. So this gear is really, really good because it has the skill Mail of Hellfire, which massively increases your raw damage. It also has Coalescence, which isn't that good. So this is a, I believe, rarity 6 gear with 2 skills. So if you go to the chart, you can see that the chances of getting build-up boost are 1 in 176. So this is relatively achievable to get build-up boost on this gear. You can lose Coalescence, get build-up boost, and have a really, really strong piece of armor. So yeah, that's category 1. Category 2 is armor that gains a lot from plus 2 slots. So I spoke about this before, so things like the Flaming Espinos Tacits, these are the bells, but the Flaming but I guess this also works. So if this gains a slot, this 1 slot becomes a 2 slot, and again, we like 2 slots. So this benefits pretty highly from extra slots. So yeah, if something is locked from slots, because slots are relatively easy, getting slots is really, really nice. And again, you use standard crafting for this, or stability if the rarity is low. Now, the last category of things we like is low rarity armor that is already very good. So one example is the Jagged Gauntlets. As you can see, this gear has attack boost 3, which is very, very nice, and it gives 2 1 slots, which we also quite like for a lot of gear. So this is actually quite good for sort of elemental-ish builds that want attack boost and also want extra 1 slots to do something else. Because this is a pool 1 gear, we can quite easily put in any skill we want just from normal crafting, so we can put build-up boost or bloodlust on this gear pretty nicely. Same deal, but to a lesser extent with the Barrack Fan Braces. I believe this one is pool 3, so getting decent things like burst, chain crit is relatively achievable. So yeah, basically these are sort of the gear we want to aim for. Of course, there are some really, really good pieces of gear that don't fit these categories. So one example is going to be the Risen Kaiser Mail. There are a few things you can do here. If your build will benefit a lot from the unique skills, you can use skill plus anyway. Like on this set, weakness exploit is a really good skill, but you can slot it in. If you do skills plus, you lose weakness exploit, but you get build up boost. That's worth it. You'll just drop a 2 slotter somewhere else and stick on weakness exploit via decoration. Alternatively, you can use standard to just try and gain a slot or another skill. So on this Risen Kaiser Mail, if you get an extra free slot, you get a free 1 slot, which is better than nothing. Or you can aim for a low point skill, like Quick Sheath or Guard, which are very good, but don't really scale well with multiple gears. Basically, if you have 1 gear like this, you can stick on Quick Sheath, you're perfect. If you have multiple, you need to just add in free 1 slots or whatever else. But yeah. Or finally, we can just use stability to add a bit of defense. I'm not going to recommend that very much. Worst comes to worst, you can get an extra slot and put in a defense boost slot. But yeah. In general, this does mean standard is probably the way to go for most cases. Skills plus is nice if you want to get a high rarity gear on high rarity equipment, but usually you don't need to do that. But it's nice, really nice to have that option. Also, as a slight quirk, if you are like hypothetically going for the best possible gear, even if it is super unlikely, standard does end up being the best still, because skill plus makes you lose resistance and gives you one fewer possible augmentation that way, because the -7 element of resistance counts as a augmentation slot. But yeah, just as a note. Anyway, so yeah, basically these are my general conclusions. Each of the types of Qurious Crafting do have their own benefits. Standard is probably the best. Skills Plus has some interesting, unique stuff with it. Stability is, I guess, good if you want to add slots for low rarity or add defense. This does increase overall build flexibility, and builds do significantly get stronger in this method, especially because of benefits like giving the Sinister Grudge Tacits really good skills via Skills Plus. And yeah, Lance and Longsword builds will come soon. I actually have the builds done, I just need to get the time to record. If you haven't noticed, this is a different filming location. I am back in Sydney for the Christmas. It's literally Christmas Eve today as I record this. I also forgot my capture card. Like, I have my Switch and everything like that. I just forgot the capture card, so there's no gameplay on screen. You just get still shots. I'll figure something out for later build videos. But yeah, so Lance and Longsword videos will hopefully come this year. I just need to basically record and post it. But yeah, hopefully, if you're interested, please subscribe. And hopefully I will see you all later. And yeah, Merry Christmas, or Happy other winter holiday, and Happy New Year, and all those things. Bye.